David R. here. Today I'm going to talk to you about this book, Escape from Camp 14 by Blaine Harden. This book is about Shin Dong-hyuk's life inside a North Korean concentration camp, Camp 14 obviously, his escape, and his adjustment to the outside world. The author states that North Korea's labor camps have now existed twice as long as the Soviet Gulag and about 12 times longer than the Nazi concentration camps. The South Korean government estimates there are about 154,000 prisoners in the camps, while the U.S. State Department and several human rights groups have put the number as high as 200,000. There are 6 camps. Camp 14 is the toughest of all concentration camps in North Korea. Most people are sent to the concentration camps without any judicial process. Some even die in the camps without even knowing the charges against them. Guilt by association is legal in North Korea. Shin was born in Camp 14 because his parents were prisoners. He was born a slave and raised behind a high-voltage barbed wire fence. Because his blood was tainted by the perceived crimes of his father's brothers, he lived below the law. For him, nothing was possible. Shin's mother would beat him, his father ignored him, and his brother was practically a stranger. He saw his mother as competition for food, because his dad wasn't always around. His dad had other work to do in other places, but he was always around his mother. And she would beat him after he would eat her food. I mean, that would upset pretty much anybody, but she would beat him, though, sometimes worse than the guards. She was brutal. As for living conditions, Shin and his mother slept side by side on a concrete floor. They shared a kitchen with 4 other families. They had a single light bulb, no chairs, no bed, no couches. They had electricity for 2 hours a day. Windows were made with gray vinyl. Rooms were heated with coal fire. And there was no running water. Every meal was the same: corn porridge, pickled cabbage, and cabbage soup. Shin ate the same meal every day for 23 years unless he was denied food because of a particular punishment. Many people in North Korea died of pellagra. This is a result of lack of protein and niacin in their foods. They suffered weakness, skin lesions, diarrhea, and dementia. It was a frequent cause of death. Eating rats was essential for survival. Guards didn't care if Shin and his friends ate rats, frogs, snakes, insects. They didn't care. There were rules that everybody had to memorize. I'm going to read those to you briefly. They are in the appendix of the book. First one, do not try to escape. Anyone caught trying to escape will be shot immediately. Any witness to an attempted escape who fails to report it will be shot immediately. 2, no more than 2 prisoners can meet together. No gathering may exceed the number of prisoners allowed by the guard in charge. 3, do not steal. Anyone found stealing or in possession of arms will be shot immediately. Anyone who deliberately damages any materials used in a camp will be shot immediately. 4, guards must be obeyed unconditionally. Anyone who harbors ill will towards or physically assaults a guard will be shot immediately. You get the point, right? Now, if a guard beats you and you hate the guard, you could be shot for that. 5, anyone who sees a fugitive or suspicious figure must promptly report him. 6, prisoners must watch one another and report any suspicious behavior immediately. For instance, each prisoner must observe others and remain vigilant. 7, prisoners must more than fulfill the work assigned them each day. 8, Beyond the workplace, there must be no intermingling between the sexes for personal reasons. Should sexual physical contact occur without prior approval, the perpetrators will be shot immediately. 9. Prisoners must genuinely repent of their errors. 10. Prisoners who violate the laws and regulations of the camp will be shot immediately. So in other words, you can get shot immediately for almost anything. Marriage was a kind of promotion for hard work and snitching. Shin's parents were married, but they didn't know each other beforehand, and they could only sleep together for 5 nights a year, with permission, of course. Bitch was a common name for women in the camp, and son of a bitch was a common name for men in the camps. Guards raped the younger women, and if the woman became pregnant, they would kill her and the baby. And they had various torture routines that they would put a woman through before they would kill her and her baby. In terms of education, students were taught rudimentary literacy and numeracy. They drilled students in camp rules and constantly reminded them of their iniquitous blood. No matter how sick a student would be, they could not miss class. Now, teachers were brutal. One time a teacher was in a bad mood and he was searching through students' pockets and found some kernels of corn in a little girl's pocket. He ordered her to the front of the class and told her to kneel. He proceeded to beat her to death with his wooden pointer. Here's a picture of a girl being eaten by dogs. Shin snitched in order to get food and better work details. One day he overheard his brother and his mother planning an escape. So he alerted the authorities, because one of the rules in Camp 14 is this: any witness to an attempted escape who fails to report it will be shot immediately. See, he was afraid of being implicated in their escape, so he would be shot. But Shin was arrested and placed in a small cell. The night guard took all the credit for Shin's snitch attempt, so the arresting guards had no idea that Shin was the one who snitched. His interrogators shackled his ankles to a rope and hung him upside down from the ceiling. He was placed over a tub of burning charcoal. The author describes what Shin went through here. Shin, crazed with pain, smelling his burning flesh, twisted away from the heat. One of the guards grabbed a gaff hook from the wall and pierced the boy in the lower abdomen, holding him over the fire until he lost consciousness. Shin's cellmate, whom he referred to as Uncle, was somebody who took care of him while he was recovering from his injuries. This guy, he opened Shin's eyes to a world outside of the camp. This was Shin's first awakening, and he would have one more in the near future. After being held in the underground prison for 7 months, Shin and his dad were driven to a location to watch Shin's mother and brother be executed. Shin hated his mother. He didn't even make eye contact with her before she was killed. As he saw it, he had been tortured because of her self-centered scheming. When Shin was 20, he worked in a garment factory. One time, he dropped a sewing machine and broke it beyond repair. Well, everything a person does in a concentration camp has repercussions. So his supervisor said, "Your hand is the problem. Cut his finger off." The chief foreman grabbed Shin's right hand and held it on a table and cut off Shin's middle finger just above the first knuckle. Eventually, Shin was placed with a work partner named Park. And Park was not born in the camp. He was a political prisoner. He was cultured. He knew about the outside world. He told Shin about beef, chicken, television, computers, cell phones. Shin didn't know any of this. He also told him that the world was round. Shin didn't know that either. Shin didn't even know the capital of his country. Park knew all of this, and Park gave Shin a second awakening. So Shin knew that this was not his home anymore, and he wanted to escape. So he and Park planned to break out. On January 2nd, 2005, Shin and Park decided it was time to get out. They didn't have a lot of time to prepare, but they had to make it through a high voltage fence. The author describes it like this. Park was the first to the fence, falling to his knees. He shoved his arms, head, and shoulders between the two lowest strands of wire. Seconds later, Shin saw sparks and smelled burning flesh. Before Shin could get to his feet, Park had stopped moving. He may have already been dead. The weight of his body pulled down the bottom strand of wire, pinning it against the snowy ground and creating a small gap in the fence. Shin was out. He had to make his way through North Korea, though, and he did this by stealing, doing whatever he could to get to the Chinese border. And at the border, he bribed guards with cigarettes and food. And once he was in China, he had a couple jobs, one with a pig farmer, one with a cattle rancher. Each of them took advantage of him the best that they could because they knew he was a fugitive. So he decided he needed to go to Shanghai. And while he was in Shanghai, he was looking for a job as a dishwasher. And he happened to come across a Shanghai-based correspondent who worked for a South Korean media company. This guy took Shin to the South Korean consulate, and immediately Shin was granted South Korean asylum. From this point on, Shin was free. But he had PTSD, he had nightmares, he had trouble sleeping, he was raked with guilt, and eventually, though, he made his way to the USA, and that's where he met the author, and then the book came about. There's some controversy over this book. There are some details that Shin changed a little later. I guess he did spend time in Camp 18, and there were some other issues, but I think that Shin went through a lot, and when you're going through that kind of torture, that kind of anxiety, you're not going to remember every detail. So I trust what he said in this book, even if not every little detail is accurate. I still trust what he said. Well, anyway, that's all I got. Talk to you later. Bye.